This is the Mountainside Podcast, and joining us back in studio is my friend Jeremiah Wilber. He's a retired Green Beret, mountain man, founder of War Party Movement, and co-founder of War Party Ranch, helping to combat human trafficking and domestic violence right here in the United States. It's an honor and privilege to call him a friend, and I hope that you enjoy today's conversation. Great to see you, dude.
Yeah, good to see you.
Sorry, we're rolling right in here and getting right after
I
it.
like it. It's good. It's good.
Yeah, but back to Vegas, man. We were talking about Vegas. You're just coming from SHOT Show. How was that?
It was good, man. It was a really cool experience. It's one of those things where, like, I always hear, a lot of people talking shit about SHOT Show or different things, and it is weird. It's like super influencer heavy, and I get it. It's like especially the 2A space, the hunting space, all these things they rely on that advertisement from influencers, and a lot of times I think influencers get it wrong because you have so many like real people actually really doing things, and then you kind of have this person who's good behind the camera. But at the end of the day, I made so many great connections. It was really cool to see like tons of buddies. Like I'm retired now, so it's like a lot of the guys that are my age or I kind of was in the Army with or served with, they're in the same boat. They're just retiring or getting ready to retire, or they're working for companies and stuff like that. So super cool, man. I had a great experience being there, and like I said, catching up on people as well as networking for the nonprofit and working. I was actually working for a company while I was there, so I was super busy, man.
That's awesome. Were you on any of the billboards from any of the modeling?
Yeah, I'm still on like everything there.
That's
Not
awesome,
everything, but
dude.
I'm on. There's a bunch of companies, still that are there, like Gators or I know for sure Gators. I was on that one. I think some Magpul stuff still.
Hell yeah. No, that's awesome. And it's not like Calvin Klein model. You're like full kit, rocket launchers, clandestine. Shout out to those.
Yeah, for sure. It's super cool. And they've been a lot of they're still to me like the best ones in the business. There's a lot of people.
100%.
There's a lot of people who try to do it, and the thing that Luke does the best at Clandestine is all the photographers. One, they either have like a baseline in the military themselves. Or they've just been around so much of it, and then they won't force you to do something. Meaning, like, let's say they're for doing photography with this certain gun or something, right? And they're like, "Well, step into this room while you do this." And for the photography angle, it looks better, but I'm like, I'm not fucking doing that, dude. Like, it's me behind the camera. I was a real Green Beret. I was a real, like people were like dependent on me to provide authenticity.
Right.
And that's what they do. They they only use, certain type of guys. Most of them are all special operations guys or, a special SWAT guys. The guys have
Well, Luke's background is crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude. Like, and then you got dudes like so much talent over there. Like Christian's actually coming on the podcast here pretty soon.
He's one of the best humans I know, man. Like
Matt Lingo, I fucking love Matt.
And he's like the best photographer in the world, man. Like that kid
so
is
good.
Oh my God.
Have you seen all the CIG or whatever it is, like the Photoshop shit that he's doing lately? It's insane.
He's really good, man.
Matty, you should pull up Matt Lingo, dude, real quick, and like check out some of this guy's work. We've had Matt on the podcast too. I got to get Matt back in here.
Yeah, he's a great dude, and he's just a cool ass dad who just is like the best photographer.
Yeah. No, that's fucking awesome, man. So, are you still doing any of those shoots with those guys at all?
I haven't done anything with them in a while. There was some moving around. They moved up to Bozeman. And I actually saw Luke at SHOT Show, and everybody's doing good, So I'm in and out of Bozeman area all the time, So I definitely check on them and whatnot. But I've just been busy, man. Like I haven't had a chance to kind of take some of those trips for me were just kind of, I'm getting paid, but I'm hanging out with the boys. It's a good time. I'm out shooting guns. I'm out on the range. I'm out doing things I used to do. And then they really stepped their game up too. We're doing, a lot of like infill, exfil off helicopters, a lot of the same stuff I was doing in the military. So it was just a cool, like, just a fun time to be around the boys again, but I haven't been able to do that in the last probably like year and a half or so.
Yeah, those shoots are so cool. I've helped Luke out with one, and it was actually kind of one of the lower level ones, I think, I can't remember who it was for. It's like Maxima Rifles or something like that. But it is just a good group of guys, but then he'll rent like a Blackhawk and have you guys fast rope out of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, like,
that's what I'm saying.
It's pretty cool.
They're the best in the game when it comes to authenticity and creating that for their clients, you know, to really show that. And you could see it at SHOT Show too. They're not knocking any other companies and the models they use or whatever, but it is kind of funny to, you know, to see the difference in the background where like legit, you know, like Born Primitive has like CAG operators on there that you know, CMG did versus, you know, some other company that has like Joe Schmo, no one knows, you know. So that is pretty cool to see that authenticity, you know, and guys.
And it's a way for guys to make some money post-career. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
yeah. And like I said, it's
rad.
Reps are reps, you know, whether even if it's just dry reps running through the house with a group of guys, you know, like you're still practicing, you know, TTP, you know, tactics, techniques, and procedures. You're doing things the way you're taught. A lot of times, you know, me being the older guy, I'm with a bunch of younger guys who are still, whether they're, you know, National Guard guys or they're actively on a SWAT team. So I feel like I should have some things I should be able to show them, and whether it's leadership stuff or if it's just, hey, this is what I did, you know, a couple years ago. Was it still relevant? Or here's some pointers, here's some ideas. So it's always fun. Like I said, it's just reps are reps, whether they're dry or they're live, you know, so that's how I look at it and take it.
Yeah, look at these posters that he creates, dude. They're so cool. They're like a movie poster.
Oh, yeah. He's
like,
nuts, dude.
Yeah.
He's nuts.
I thought you might like this. This is one of my homies makes guns out of old cameras.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
okay.
nice.
And they like sells these as pieces, but all these are made out of like, that's like the rolls of film.
Oh, damn.
Like,
So are they actually functional, or is it
No,
like
it's
an
just-
art thing?
It's all old cameras they've broken up and like recreated into like looking like guns.
Wow.
Nice.
That's kind of cool.
But they're really cool looking. Like
oh,
all
look at
these
that
old
one with the
Fuji
grenade
ones.
launcher. That's
It's like
That
some
reminds
Star
Tommy
Wars
gun.
shit.
Yeah, it is.
You remind me of what you guys talking about this.
I think Matt might be into something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe. He probably had a hand in it, dude. That guy,
Yeah,
he's a little
super
quiet
creative,
professional
dude.
himself,
Yeah, he is.
dude.
He's nuts.
He's awesome. So rad. Yeah, man. So are you still doing like the tactical games? Speaking of like
No,
kind
so
of
I-
doing some training and stuff like that?
I just did it. I did it once, just with a friend of mine. She competes all the time, and I was just kind of like, you know what, I'll try it. I'll do it. And you know, and the reality is, it's like, I thought it was gonna be way. I don't want to sound like I'm a knock on them. I thought it was gonna be way more tactical, meaning like a lot of transitions. You know, I would be able to shoot and move and be able to transition between my primary and my secondary weapon system. A lot of things that like just naturally, because I've done it for so long, I'd have a way, you know, a heads up on everybody. The reality is, excuse me, to bring in that many people and to do it safely, there is a lot of kind of, you know, like we call it like broken cycle training. That's like that old school of like, I throw a right cross and you dodge it this way. Sure. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff.
Right?
Yeah. So it's like, there is a lot of like hard stops. We're like, okay, right here, you're going to unload your primary weapon. Now you're going to, you know, put your rifle down, unholster your pistol, do this. So there is some things where I thought that was like, that took like the tactical thing out of it. But at the end of the day, like, I understand them trying to be like, hey, we have to move X amount of people through this who've never done this before. We have all these different levels.
Right.
So what it really is just like, it's like CrossFit and you're shooting at the same time. So, you know, I did well. I actually qualified for nationals at that one. But
awesome.
But I didn't like it, dude. My hand was, sounds like I'm full of excuses. Here's another VA story.
Yeah.
I broke my hand in November of 22. I finally have an appointment to get my hand looked at March 29th of this year. Yeah, tight, right? The VA is awesome.
Oh, shit, that's like a year and a half,
Yeah,
isn't
dude.
it?
Yeah. So I had broke my hand, and then I did that comp, and it was like it's very, very physical. It's and I enjoyed it. I had a great time. It was like doing CrossFit, and then you're doing like CrossFit workouts basically, and you're shooting in the middle of those. The thing I liked about it the most was just like a lot of 2A people that were all involved in it, you know, and just like the support of the community there. But at the end of the day, it's like CrossFit to me. Like, I would love hate with CrossFit, where I think it's like super fucking gay, but then it's also like, yeah, it's cool, you know? So that's kind of how I felt about that competition. But again, great people, you know, couldn't speak more highly of the people that I was around, the people that run it, the people I met there. just another thing from the outside looking in. You know, it's easy to talk shit about, but it's also like it's a hell of a good time.
One thing to go there and do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And like I said, I had a good time.
That's what I always kind of wondered about SHOT Show, and honestly, why I haven't gone. I've been invited a couple times. Is it's like, hey, I don't like going to public places in general.
Yeah,
but it's like, what? I have no LPO experience or military experience or fucking, you know, like.
I think
what do I need to be there for?
I think it's and I don't know, I haven't been there a ton. This is my I'll have to tell the whole story, but this is my second year at SHOT Show, kind of my first and a half year, I would say.
Okay.
So last year at SHOT Show, and I don't want to put the whole story out there because I just got some things done. So last year at SHOT Show, I basically got into it with some pimps at the bar, at Circle Bar. They're running some girls at the bar. I'm just not going to have my background and be who I am and represent what I do for a war party and see this happening. So, and I was drinking a little bit. So I went over to security, kind of pointed it out. I probably could have been more professional about the way I did it. I was, pretty passionate about what's going on. And I was basically told, like, hey, kick rocks, dude. Like, get the fuck out of here.
It's everywhere, man. And everybody's on the take.
Yeah, too. And that's kind of how I felt about it. So basically they were like, hey, you're kicked out of the casino. And I was like, okay, whatever, dude. I honestly thought it was bullshit, because like they didn't take me into the security office. They didn't I didn't sign any paperwork. It was nothing like that. It was just like, hey, you're kicked out. And I was kind of like, what the hell's going on? Like, I'm literally just asking you, like, what? There was no adult conversation. No one said anything like, hey man, our hands are tied with this, like, how are we supposed to approach a woman and say she's being a prostitute? My whole thing was like, there were girls that were branded. So there was a guy sitting at the bar with a big crown tattoo on his hand, and there was like 5 girls with crown tattoos on their faces sitting at the bar, working the bar. So I was just kind of like, hey, like, it's this obvious. You have anti-human trafficking posters everywhere and all over your, by security, by these things to what to look out for. And it's literally right in front of you and you're not doing anything. So anyway, that was last year. And I mean, I didn't go back to that next day. I didn't go to the casino or nothing. That was like the only time I was at SHOT Show. I was like at the bar that night. I think it was like Monday night last year. And then I had to be at Art of the Cowgirl. We had girls competing at Art of the Cowgirl in Arizona. So I just kind of turned around and went to Arizona the next day. And then this year, same thing. I was at the bar and all of a sudden, like, security swarms me like 30 deep. And they're like,
from last year.
I guess like that one of them.
Well, the mustache is pretty. I mean, it's a good giveaway, dude.
And of course, I was like, full cowboy with like a mustache and a cowboy hat on. So they rolled up on me, took me to security, but at the same time, it was the first time I had an adult conversation. The lady who was in charge of security that night, I guess the manager, whatever, plain clothes, asked me what happened. I kind of described it to her. I was like, I didn't think I was kicked out of it. Like, to be honest, like, I'm not here trying to cause problems or anything. I'm here to work. I'm actually working for a company, working for SHOT Show. And she was like, okay, not a problem. Maybe in the morning, you can come back in the morning and you can talk to security. So that's what I did. And I was kind of by with them through another agency, helping them doing some reporting and stuff. So I contacted them, was like, hey, this is my problem. This is what happened to me. So we just had a meeting with the Venetian head of security in the morning, and they waived the 86. They're just like, hey, you just can't drink at the bar. I was like, yeah, no problem. So I think the way they wrote that report was that obviously, like, covering their own butt, right? Like, making it look like I was some belligerent drunk. And I was like, dude, come on.
Right.
Like, but
that's Vegas, man. Like, you have to be on the up and up there, man. It is.
Yeah. So that was my first kind of, SHOT Show experiences this year. And again, I was working for a company, and we had a really cool setup. We had a small setup in one of the booths at the ADS booth. And then we had most of our...
For War Party you did?
No, for another company called Blackbridge Defense.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they make machine gun mounts and stuff. And I always try to kind of stay a little bit relevant. I'm an old dude. I'm not going to pretend like I still know what's going on, right? But at the end of the day, like, if I can help a buddy's company sell... And a lot of it was networking, like, hey, use my contacts. that I still have that are guys who are still active or, you know, newly retired, things like that, or contracting, you know, got out and stuff. So a lot of the stuff we had was actually up in a suite, which was really cool because I was able to take guys, you know, from the floor up to the suite to see more equipment, have, you know, real conversations about things that we can make for them or, you know, packages we could put together. And that gave me a huge break from just like the craziness of SHOT Show,
just the crowd,
and the people. And I was able to, you know, have like way more intimate setting with buddies, you know, and or, you know, hey, you know, I had some buddies that were just getting ready to get out of the unit, and they had their procurement guy there and stuff. So it was easy to be like, hey, come up. You know, we had whiskey up there, and we're doing like bourbon tastings and stuff. And we had a couple of nonprofits that are supporting it as well.
Well, it's got to be great just catching up with old friends.
Oh,
man.
absolutely.
Like, that's the biggest thing. Right?
Yeah, and it was
brothers,
easy.
really. I mean,
yeah, absolutely. And it was easy just to like, you know, like I said, it was way more intimate than being like down on the floor and you know, having these conversations. So my experience with SHOT Show, I think that really helped out a lot too. It broke up a lot of the day because I spent, you know, half of my day in these meetings in the suite versus, you know, trying to wrangle cats or herd cats or have somebody meet me at this booth or find them or whatever.
Right.
So, yeah. So,
and you're a pretty recognizable person too. So I would imagine that there's a few people coming up to you that want. Yeah.
It was weird. So
how many fake guys are there? Like stolen valor type motherfuckers. Dude?
I don't know, man. I think the community is so. I think it's easy to say like fake stuff when you are on the internet or to people who don't know, but the community is so small.
To walk in there, you're walking into the lion's den.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it is. It is a lion's den. It's like you know, and even like, you know, here's an example. Like, I don't know that many Navy SEALs, right? But like, if I'm at a random bar or someone's like, "Oh, my cousin's a SEAL," or you know, or some dude's being a loudmouth, I can send like 2 text messages out and figure out if this person is actually a SEAL.
I'm the same way,
team guy,
man.
right? Like, I'm not even. It wasn't even the Navy. You know, I was a Green Beret, and it's vice versa. Same thing. You know, one of my SEAL buddies would be like, "Hey, there's some fucking dude here, says he was blah blah," and I'm like, "I don't know. Let me send a couple messages out." You know, and the community's that small. So I think that
it's very small, man.
Yeah, I don't think there's the same stolen valor. Like, maybe on the internet, but not necessarily in person.
Well, I've had people hit me up for the podcast before. And I automatically text. Like, anytime anybody comes on with any sort of military background, I think might even text you. Sure. And I actually got to ask you about somebody before you leave today.
No, for sure.
Hit me up. But, like, not only that, it's like, even if they were an active SEAL or a Green Beret or something, they're not always good people, man. Like, not, you know what I mean? For the most part, dude, 95% of them are fucking awesome, dude.
Well, I think
you'd love to have them in.
But. You know, a lot of when you just take that as a whole, what you just said, right, and you look at, you know, veteran suicide, in particular, special operations veterans is like the highest in the world. It's insane how many guys. You know, I literally last week I had a buddy of mine commit suicide, and it's just like just keeps happening. Just you're like, dude, what the fuck's going on? And you look at that, and then you talk to somebody who's an expert, like Kate Pate, who she's a neuroscientist, and she does all these studies and things, you know, brain trauma, what it's done to you, and how it affects you, right? So you add all those things into it. A lot of guys, you know, on top of the ego you already have for being in special operations and just this everything you've been through, you know, and then especially when you get out, it's like you're a rock star and everyone knows you. And then when you get out, it's like no one knows you. You're not a celebrity anymore. Like, no one cares. Everyone in the hallway, like, yeah, they're going to kind of tell some stories about you, but that's going to fade so quick, you know. And these guys, I think, dealing with all that, you know, the transitioning out of the military, whether you're, you know, did 6 years or you did, you know, 26 years, right? You're transitioning out. You're dealing with, you know, all the CTE and all these issues from brain trauma, personality. You know, the term they call it is operator syndrome, and it's basically like where you have you're very impulsive, but you're also like very tough and not scared of things, and like all these things kind of
all the shit you were trained to do, right?
Yeah, and it just like comes to a head. So I think sometimes people are like, "Oh, so and so is a shithead," and it's like, that dude's a shithead, but he's also like really fucked up. You know, most of the time it's like you said, guys are. I give guys the benefit of the doubt even when they are, assholes. Now, there is a point where it's like, yeah, I'm not.
I don't
I'm
mind
not
somebody
messing with
being
that
an
guy.
asshole. I'm talking about like,
Oh no, for sure.
Shady shit.
Yeah,
dude.
well,
like,
a lot of the guys, I'm not gonna say a lot of guys are shady. A lot of, I think that is easy because you're not in a team anymore. So I feel like that transition to getting out of the military, especially when you're a special operations guy, now everything's almost singular. And if you were a singular person before you were on a team, and now you're really trying to create who you are and your own identity, it's going to be very singular. And I've seen that a lot. And a lot of people talk about creating purpose and things you need to do when you get out of the military to have a healthy mindset and to live healthy and not have those suicidal ideations and all the other things that guys deal with. Creating purpose is the big one, but I think like a lot of guys create a very singular purpose instead of like that team mentality, and you want to be a part of something that's bigger than you. I don't know what the answer is on how everybody creates that in their own community, but it's what I strive to do with War Party, whether that's on the nonprofit side or even just on War Party movement side, is how can I help people feel like they're part of something that's bigger than just themselves, and they're moving forward and doing good things in the community. So that to me is like my only answer, what I've found. And
I think you're spot on, because looking at it from an outside perspective, and some of the guys that I've had operated at a high level, or my friends from the rock and roll, a lot of those guys go into personal protection and entertainment, right? Which is super awesome. And it seems like the guys that are the happiest in life, right? Like forget success, forget money, forget all that, is the guys that still have a team around them.
Absolutely.
So like being with a road crew or a crew, say you're out on Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
And you're with it's basically a family of 100 people for, God, I don't know, like a year and a half,
absolutely.
3-4 years maybe.
Absolutely. And I think everybody, the veteran community, and even people always look for like the answer, especially when you're in the military. It's like as much as we operate at a high level, it's still very, very structured. You have left and right limits. Those limits get, broader or narrower depending on what you did in the military, right? If you're a regular infantry guy, that's very narrow limits. If you're in special operations, they're very broad right and left limits, but you still have a structure that you're with, right? You're still with this team of people, and you're doing everything for the people on your right and left of you, as well as, for yourself as well. But if you're a very singular person, once that's removed, you don't know how to navigate that. Now you're only about yourself. And speaking of like SHOT Show and a guy we know, I was standing there waiting to take some guys up to the suite, and Andy Arabito walked up on me, and I got a chance to talk to him for a second. And the coolest thing, one of the things he said was, my sister and I had been planning to get a knife for a long time for my brother-in-law. So I was working with emailing back and forth, just like, hey, I'm
the best fucking knives in the game.
And it was literally
too,
just
by the
like,
way. Half-face blades.
I don't want anything
Shout
for
out.
free. I just need just a shot, dude. Like, what do you think? Sent him to descriptions of my brother-in-law, and he's like, yep, we got it. And got this amazing knife made for him. We were able to give it to him for Christmas.
Hell yeah.
And I just, thanked him like, hey man, thank you so much for that. It was so cool. And the coolest thing he said was, dude, I have an amazing team. It's my guys, and not taking credit for anything that was done. And to me, that's leadership. That's being part of a team. That is, he created his, yes, it's a business purpose, but when you really look at those guys in that shop and how they're treated and what they think of each other, it is very, like tight-knit family, just like you were talking about the security guys, right? Like that is a family that works together. They love what they're doing. They enjoy what they're doing. They're creating these amazing products.
Man.
Yeah,
really.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's an example of how you can use business to even create your purpose in your team and your people that surround you to keep that positive energy and to
it's
keep
so
moving
huge,
forward.
man. It's such and that's kind of what I was referring to. Is I've known Beto for quite a while now. We've done 2 episodes. We recorded both of them at Half Face Blades. We did a blade giveaway and stuff for the 100th episode. But he's just on board. And the thing that I love most about having you or Beto or some of these former guys with your guys' sort of background, or UFC fighters, or people that perform at a high level in general, is they're not afraid not to agree with you, tell you what they think, and have a real opinion, right? Where, to me, that's important.
Absolutely.
Like, it's how I value a person is like, how much are you just a yes man, or are you going to actually tell me how you feel? You know? And I guess I just like surrounding myself with people like that. And they're few and far between, man.
Absolutely.
But it seems like from the operator community or from that fighter community, it's like, you pretty much, they wear it all on their sleeves, and there's nothing to prove, right? Like,
I think it just, it's one of those things where life is so serious and crazy at times, you know, and people who've experienced that real life and death feeling, right? Like, for a fighter, yes, can a fighter go in a cage and or a boxing ring or whatever and die? Yes, some of them have. The reality is, you know, do they feel like they're going to die? No. But in those moments, I mean, they are in like true fight or flight mode. It's all on them. They have nothing to depend on, you know, but themselves and their training and their team and what they've done to get there. So they understand that mentality. And I think the only other thing that kind of compares to that, you know, are people who work in these very hostile environments, you know, soldiers, you know, firefighters, police officers, you know, and to even a lot of your blue collar guys, right? That are,
I left first responders out of that.
Yeah. And whether it's, you know,
huge.
You're on an oil crew or you're a cowboy or whatever, you're dealing with life and death situations in very hostile environments all the time. So I think I've found that a lot of guys who deal with that, they're closer to death in a weird way, meaning they respect life so much. So they don't take life as serious, if that makes sense. They're very funny. They're very like joking all the time.
Yeah, it's locker room talk, right?
They try to enjoy themselves because you're defined in these moments when you really have to, you know, take everything away and really focus on the moment, what's going on in front of you, whether that's a gunfight, a fight in a cage, whether that's, like I said, you're a firefighter, you're going in a building, whether it's me and you are trying to rope and doctor some yearlings or load bulls in the trailer, whatever it is. I mean, there's moments where like if something goes sideways, someone could get hurt pretty bad or killed. And I think that those kind of things help keep life, that balance of like what's really important, you know, and that's what I find
more with you.
Yeah. So, and that's one of my favorite things about being, you know, since I got out is like being involved in, and I hate to say, I'm not a real cowboy, man. I try my hardest to you know, to learn it.
You might be one of the realest ones I know. Like, there's a difference between rodeo cowboys and like actual cowboys, and you're actually out like.
So I'm trying.
I mean, you're cowboying. Right?
Yes and no. So when I say yes and no, the coolest thing that I like about working and being a cowboy or learning from cowboys is most of these guys have been doing this, guys and gals have been doing it all their whole life, right? And I think that most people don't understand how good that makes you when you've been doing something your entire life and now you're in your 50s or your 60s.
Right?
Oh, it's insanity. And so for me, I'm just very blessed to be able to learn from these people. And what you were saying before, it's like I seek out, I always want to be around people who are better than me at things, you know, and I think people who look to be the best around in their circle don't have growth. They're not going to strive. They're not going to be pushed. They don't have those friends that tell them hard conversations or tell them things or say, hey, when you're fucked up or whatever. And my favorite thing about being around these real cowboys and learning from them is they're not scared to do that. You know, they're so humble, almost to a fault a little bit, you know, in the Western world. But they're so humble to just like, to teach you something, or if you don't know it, it's just like, hey, I don't know how to do that. If you fake the funk, they'll call you out really quick. And that's the easiest way to like never work with somebody again, not get invited. You know, they don't want to hang out with you. They don't want to be your friend because you're fake. And I think that has helped me a lot in transition because I only got that when I was in special forces, right? Like I was always around that. And I don't know any other environment the guys can get out of the military and kind of walk straight into those same kind of personalities of people who are willing to, you know, trim all the fat, not give you any bullshit and tell you whether you're fucked up or not. Being told good job or you did good is few and far between.
Yeah.
So I think like
it's authenticity, really, right?
absolutely.
It's how you authentically feel and how you authentically communicate with other people, man.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think there's a higher level of respect there than there is if you're just standing there telling somebody what they want to hear or agreeing with them, and then you turn around and get in the truck and you're like, this guy's a fucking idiot or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Like,
and what's really helped me with that whole thing is I always say, like, guys, you need to do something hard all the time, whether that's once a year, whether that's, hey, I want to run a marathon, or I'm going to train to go archery hunt all September. I'm just going to chase elk in the mountains, whatever it is. Putting your body in your mind physically and mentally in very hard, tough situations. That is one thing that I think has been key for me. But the other coolest thing about retiring and then working, as a cowboy is I had to take a back seat. Like I started completely over. I was like the brand new guy on the team essentially again. And now I have to just keep my mouth shut, just listen, take all the pointers, do what I'm told, and really not be in this, like, I've been there, done that. I'm the old guy who knows, everyone comes to. Now I'm like the brand new guy that gets all the shit jobs and has to get, which is humbling. And also it's a ton of fun. But it's also, I think it takes a lot to set your mind back to doing that and be willing to just learn from the very beginning. And I'm not saying
you have to
do
swallow a lot, right?
Yeah. It would be like, like starting jiu-jitsu or something, being a brand new white belt, but you come from some kind of background and an expertise in something else. But at the same time, like, if we're just staying within these rules of jiu-jitsu, like, you're getting your ass handed to you because you're not a jiu-jitsu guy, right? Or you don't know that. So I think, like, it's just really cool to kind of take that role again of being that brand new guy, stepping out and doing something that you're uncomfortable with, that's out of your comfort zone, and then constantly kind of pushing those limits a little bit where, at first you might not feel comfortable like riding out by yourself and going to gather, 50, 60 head of or 50, 60 pairs that are out in some pasture. But then when you go do it, you're learning the techniques, you learn how to do it right from somebody, and you go do it, you have this sense of accomplishment. It's like, dang, hell yeah, like, I'm doing this, but it does take a lot to kind of take that back seat and start over. But that's something I always challenge people with, is like, don't be scared to not be the expert in the room. And even if you are an expert at something, it doesn't mean
it's okay to ask questions too.
Exactly.
I think I really appreciate what, like, you and Beto are doing, because a lot of the guys that come from your community don't really ever show their face, don't really care about social media, any of that sort of thing. I think it gives some guys that might be in a bad situation, coming out of the military, and there's a lot.
Yeah.
Something to look, a higher standard to look to, and not even like on a accomplishment side, just like, yeah, I can still go do shit, right?
Yeah.
But more importantly, outside of that, right? Because that's a small bubble. But outside of that, man, I think one of my biggest concerns in this country is, like, when you and I grew up, it was way different, man. We were latchkey kids, or I was anyways. Like, I could go run around the forest for as long as I wanted, as long as I was home by dark, right?
Yeah.
And whether it was summer or winter or whatever, or I was just, like, it was okay for me to go camping for 3 days. If I didn't show up on Sunday night, then I was in trouble, right? Like, and it's just way different. Like, I don't think that I would let my kids go do that now. And it's a different space, but kind of like, I really think that people in general, the vast majority of them, don't face any adversity. Like, maybe 1% of the population in the U.S. is hunters, right?
Yeah.
Out of that group of hunters, maybe another 5% are archery hunters, right? Yeah. Which is even more difficult. And then out of that, there's a few, like, select, maybe 0.5% of those guys are traditional hunters. And then out of that, there's maybe 1 or 2 guys that make stone tools, and you know what I mean? So, like, I think no matter what it is, if you're challenging yourself to read a book or walk into a jiu-jitsu class, to do something where there's some sort of fear that you have to push through, has been ingrained in the American culture for hundreds of years, right? And in society, even outside of the American culture, I just don't think we're facing that anymore.
Yeah,
I think it's so easy to hide and shelter and also throw stones. From
life's so easy right now, man. Is what it is. It's just you don't have to face adversity if you don't want to. And I think that, you know, like our generation, we're at fault for all this. You know, it's easy for us to say, you know, hey, yeah, I grew up in the 80s and the 90s and it was this tough and you don't know what it's like to be bored and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, like we all say this stuff, right? But then like how many of us like just hand your kid your phone at the restaurant or do things? Like we all look for the easy way out because it's convenient. You know what I mean? And
it's so simple to do.
It's simple. It's
like
easy
you
to
need
do.
To occupy
it's
somebody,
easy to do,
like,
right?
Boom, here you go.
Whereas, or with punishing your kids, I'm not saying that everyone has to spank their kids or whatever, but I whip my kids, not all the time, not for everything that they do, but they get whooping sometimes. And with that, it's like, I think too many people in our generation put themselves back in like a 10-year-old mind frame when you got spanked by your dad and you were like, I'm never going to do this to my kids. And like, you think like your brain reverts back to what it felt like versus, and I'm not talking about like if you were abused or something. I'm talking like a healthy relationship, a healthy punishment.
Yeah, I wish I was spanked when I was a kid.
So it's like, you look at it and you say, well, like if you spank your kids, you should tell them what they did wrong. I'm doing this because I love you. Like all these different things that you walk through before you give this punishment to your children. But I think we complain about society, right? Like you can steal a car and you don't get arrested, or you can steal up to $900 worth of shit and don't get arrested.
Fucking
and all
go
this
to
stuff.
San Francisco,
dude.
It's
so
a shit
we
show.
complain about all this shit, right? But then we let our kids do it. Like how many times you see, and I used to clown because I'm, my mother's Indian, and it would be like it's always white kids. White kids are bad as shit. But now everyone's fucking bad as hell. You know what I mean? Like, and you're in the grocery store and some mom's counting 1, 2, 3. It's like you ain't gonna do shit.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that we as society we complain so much about how easy it is and everything that goes on, right? Or we complain about things, but like who goes to school board meetings? Who's actually affecting their community?
That's
who's
the biggest
who's
thing.
doing something. You're complaining about kids, but how are your kids? Can your kids sit at the restaurant without the tablet, without the phone, and be quiet and listen to you? No, they can't. So all the things we complain about, we just internalize it and complain about it, but we don't fucking do anything to improve our situation.
That's super key. People are scared to say fucking anything now, too.
We just let society like hold us into that. And here's an example, like taxes and like how crazy taxes are and where your tax money goes and all this shit, right? Well, it's like if we say, hey, we're just not going to pay taxes anymore. How many people are going to do that? You're literally going to be, what are you going to not do it? And then your family is going to get fucked and owe the government and they're going to come after you. So it's like the system is literally imposed on us to control us and to keep us in this way. And the way we can break these things and help society is creating small communities. Start small. Who are your neighbors? How can I help my neighbors? What's going on? And really small and affecting what's going on around you. And then that kind of spreads and grows and snowballs from there.
And also, I think one thing that's key to that, where you're not even raising your voice or doing anything, is just lead by example, man.
Absolutely.
Like if you tell your kids not to be on the phone, you shouldn't be there on a phone. Like parents are just as guilty. Like you go walk into any doctor's office or anything like that, and I guarantee you'll see a parent on their phone and a kid sitting there with nothing to fucking do. Yeah. Right? Like,
we're just not bored anymore. It's so easy just to we're guilty of it. It's like I got nothing to do for 5-10 minutes. I pull out my phone and
stand in line. If you're gonna stand in a line, hell yeah,
just like whatever, man. Look at my phone
for sure. And as much as I use it and we've used it here and it's benefited us, I trash talk it all the time, but we're just as fucking guilty, man. Like we're still doing it. I think one of the coolest things is I work part-time at Comedy Works down in Denver. There's 2 locations. And when you go in to see a comedy show there, they put your phone in this bag. It's called a Yonder bag, right? Yeah. So it's basically it's like a magnetic bag that your phone goes in, you silence it. it can still be on. You can still feel it vibrate, right? So if it's vibrating, you can feel it through the bag. But it's crazy. When you work there and you see people, they start getting anxiety.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see them pick up the Yonder bag like they're going to look at their phone, and then they go like, then you see like the disappointment, or you'll see them reaching for their pocket. It's fucking insane. Like me and some of the other coworkers there just stand back and watch this. I mean, and it's like, that will show you how addicted people are.
Oh, absolutely.
And the anxiety that comes with it. You get people that walk out, they paid hundreds of dollars to go see some top-rate comic.
Take a phone,
phone
call or look at their phone. And it's not like their wife's pregnant. Like
we're talking an hour show.
yeah.
Like and if she is, don't be at a fucking comedy show, dude.
Yeah. No, and that's one reason why I love being able to disconnect. You know, like my happy place really is on a horse, especially if I can be in the mountains doing it. And I just love being able to, you know, have my phone deep in my pocket and like probably don't even have cell service, you know, and because I get people a lot of times on social media. It's like one with social media, it's like I don't know how I got followers. I do. I try to be as authentic as possible, and I really don't post that much. But one of the things I get people is like post more cowboy stuff or show more things, and it's like for me, it's like my happy place. Like I don't want to pull out my phone and try to share everything.
That's why I don't get into sharing. Like I get a ton of hate. Like I get called a fake hunter all the time and all this shit, right? Because I do talk about it on here, and it's probably
you're not posting pictures of killing everything and like
So I'm like, oh, fuck, man. Like
no, I get it.
I don't even argue with those people anymore. You know?
No, same.
Like,
it just like I get some of the same stuff, you know, because I'm pretty outspoken about protecting hunter like outfitters and private land and outfitters, you know, because these are small family businesses, right? So when your brand is to put animals on the ground, but you're acting like you're taking all the credit for it, that is super frustrating and aggravating because that's the average guy can't pay $30,000 to go on a
hell no, dude,
on a guided hunt.
And honestly, if they've had any experience and are actually hunters, like I would never pay that. I don't care how much money I had to go do that. Like I get paying an outfitter or something for the experience and being with those people, but like to be like, I totally understand. It's a double-edged sword,
no,
right?
I agree.
But me personally,
yeah.
Like with all the experience that I have and the way that I do it, I'm very ingrained in that. So I don't want somebody to tell me how to run my trip either.
Absolutely.
At the same time.
So I love the fact, like I'm kind of in the middle with you where it's like, I love when guys I know they're just out doing it on their own, post a picture, you know, a nice bull they shot or a bear they shot or something, or have a lot in their story. I usually just put stuff on my story when I'm out hunting. So I'll do like blood trail or something, or if one of my guys shot something, you know, I'll throw them in there. But I'm not super big on just like, hey, look what I've done or look what I've got. And I kind of might start doing a little bit more because I do hunt unsuccessfully a lot, and I kind
I'm
of
not
want to show
knocking that,
too.
dude. Like I think it's super cool. Like look at, you know, I was just talking about being worried about America in general as a country and us getting like super soft and raising soft kids, but nothing could be stronger for social media. Like having good influences, like Beto, like some of these former operators that are out hunting, doing stuff. Cameron Haynes is a great example, dude. Like he's somebody that puts in miles and time and all that sort of stuff too.
I think
whether he's doing it the right way or not. But
it was like capturing the journey. He's showing, you know, these guys are showing.
Just being a badass, dude. Like be physically fit. Fucking.
I think what I didn't realize either was like how much society puts so much stock into social media. The average person, you know, and I get it, you know, you're a house mom or male, female, whatever your job is, you know, it's like whether you're just like sitting in a cubicle, like the highlight of your day is like I get why people post their food or like do weird, like shit that I'm like, what the fuck are they doing? I would never do, but like the highlight of their life was like this vacation to
seeing
Vegas.
All those
and,
little
like,
hearts, dude,
right? So I think like social media.
Can I get a cold one of these, dude?
Social media is it's a highlight reel, right? Like it literally is just the highlights, things I want to show you. And I think that people that understand that can use that as motivation And I always tell people, I'm like, if you don't like social media and you don't, you're not motivated by it, you're just following the wrong people, man. Like there's way too many cool companies and people and great things going on to be down these like super negative rabbit holes or like hating what's going on with America or social media or anything.
Yeah, I know. I trash talk it all the time, but then I'll turn around and fucking, I'll be on it this afternoon.
It's super motivating.
Fucking, yeah.
It's super motivating. There's
if
so
you
much
follow the
motivation
right people. And my philosophy with it is to post and kind of get the fuck off of it. And then when I do want to look at it, I'm not just going to pick it up and go to my normal feed. I've actually set like a rule for myself, I guess, that I actually have to go to the search bar before and there will always be something. And it catches my fucking attention for sure sometimes, right? But I'm not one to just sit there and scroll. So what I'll do is I'll actually be like, fuck, I wonder what Beto's up to, or I wonder what the half-face blade drop is, or what's Jeremiah doing?
Checking
you know
out
what
people.
I mean? Yeah. And then it's also kind of supporting them too, because I'm going directly to their page. I'm liking a bunch of shit at once or whatever, right? And like I enjoy seeing my friends thrive. That aspect of it is fucking amazing, dude.
Okay.
If you're not checking out the Mountainside Podcast on YouTube, you absolutely should be. If you like the content that we create here and you want to help support the podcast, please take a moment, subscribe to us on YouTube, and hit that notification bell.
I've met so many amazing people through social media and had so many great opportunities. So for me, it is, I use it as a healthy tool. I do know there is like some diminishing returns, you know, like, you know, sometimes I'll get high, dude, and just be down and just scrolling real, just laughing, you know,
drunk and high is not.
So, and I get that, but at the end of the day, you know, the relationships I've built, the people I've met, the opportunities I've been given, whether that's personally or to the nonprofit, which has just been beyond cool, and people wanting to help, you know, or do a fundraiser for us or get involved or just, you know, small touch points. It's super cool. And just to see the community that these ladies from War Party Ranch, you know, have built and what they're doing. And
we need to dive into that. And I think, you know, I guess for people that haven't listened to the prior episodes, you have, is it 2 nonprofits or
no.
is
So
it combined?
It's so basically the way it's evolved into now was I started War Party Movement just as a way to kind of finance search and rescue efforts or just helping women get out of abusive situations. Most of that, it started in the Native community and then just kind of grew to, and social media helped that, you know, like people, ladies just reaching out or someone saying, hey, I know this guy Jeremiah, let's give him a call. And what I was doing, basically War Party Movement is just a t-shirt company, and I was just using the sales to help facilitate a lot of that.
Which the logo is fucking awesome,
Thank
dude.
you.
Like,
It's based off the
and
Alamo
you guys
Scouts
make badass
logo.
stuff too.
Yeah. So then she's not my blood sister, but I love this girl that she is like my real sister. Her name is Micah Waisaki. We partnered together looking at this, basically this gap of like, well, can we break the cycle of abuse? You know, she is a survivor of domestic abuse, and looking at things that like, how did she empower herself? You know, she had to do this on her own, but what did she do? She's just this badass cowboy who used basically like horses and cowboying and just nature to get over things, to like heal herself. And we looked at like, well, how can we empower women to break the cycle of abuse and not continue down this path of these abusive relationships, or to get them involved with something that really empowers them, makes them feel strong again. So we started War Party Ranch, which is a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 nonprofit. What we do there is we use, you know, horsemanship, hunting, like martial arts, weapons, you know, just tough, gritty warrior mindset skills to empower women to overcome, whether that's preventative, meaning we work locally here in Kiowa. We work with like teenage girls all the way up to, you know, older, you know, women in their 50s and 60s. And you know, that in itself, that's a really cool community that Micah has done.
Do you have a jiu-jitsu partner in that?
Yes and no. So we have, I have a couple people that are kind of, you know, that we're facilitating things
Remind me after this. I didn't mean to interrupt
no
you,
worries,
but
no worries.
I got somebody that I would like to align you with
Okay.
that might actually really be able to help you.
Yeah,
They're
heck yeah.
super cool people,
Yeah, hell yeah.
good people. So,
Hell yeah. Yeah. So what we're doing now is we've been providing, whether that's like, I guess the word like scholarships or sponsorships for like rodeos, small engagements for women, not just locally, but like kind of across the country. We also provide, therapy. We have a really cool online therapist. She's a native lady. She lives on a reservation in New York, and she runs this really cool program that allows you to, regardless of your background, or when I say background, I mean like race, religion, any of that, to use your own and heal on your own, guided through her. So you could be a black girl who's Southern Baptist, who can, praise and worship and do everything you still want to do. You could be a girl from, Pakistan who's Hindu or whatever, or Muslim, and she'll still guide you through these and not force you down any kind of weirdness, meaning like a religious hole. And that's important because a lot of times in therapy, especially working with Native women, sometimes, a lot of the nonprofits and therapy things that will give therapy for free to someone is like a religious space. So they want to like force them down something. So they're
pushing Christianity or whatever it is.
Whatever it is. So what we're able to do is we're able to pay for women to go through this online therapy program, which has been really beneficial. We also have a really badass lady. Her name is Natasha McCann. She's a strength conditioning coach and specializes in rodeo athletes. So, and she also, her expertise is in like rehab and recovery. So if you like tore your ACL, you will start working with her and get you back in the game, get you back on, roping or whatever your sport was. So we do have some touch points. A lot of those have been with ladies that have their feet wet already kind of in the rodeo world, are doing things. And then we also kind of have where we're introducing young ladies to rodeo stuff. So, and we're very small. But I also tell people, it's like, don't underestimate the power of helping someone feel like they're bigger, they're part of something bigger than them. Meaning, we take a 16-year-old girl, put her in a brand new like War Party Ranch Western button-up, pay for her roping fees at this community rodeo, and she represents War Party Ranch roping. Now, for her, for someone on the outside looking in, that dollar amount wasn't that high. It was a couple $100 for us to be able to do that. But the reality is like she's representing so many women, right? And what if like the lady that's sitting in the stand that's in an abusive relationship or was, and she like just sees these girls, she's like, dang, this is so cool. So these young women are not only empowering themselves, they're basically the voice for a lot of people who are feeling voiceless or feeling like they're unheard or feeling that they're not in a position to even talk about what they've been through yet. Now we have these girls that like they look at and they're like, wow, this is so freaking cool. These badass cowgirls. And that's what's like, the most rewarding and important part of what we're doing to me is just building this really cool community of people who are willing to stand up and do what's right. And I'll kind of give you a quick story. Last week, we had a gal who reached out, sent me a text message, said, hey, Micah said to give you a call, and she's part of our little crew. And said, yeah, give me a second. I was actually at SHOT Show and jumped on a phone call with her, kind of told me a situation that was going on with one of her friends. She had gotten beat up, went to the ER, was like, hey, I need to get out of here. So through that and small network of people, of these girls, and really this is a testament to Micah and what she's done in the community, is now you have these young women who are not scared to stick up for each other and say like, hey, no, I know someone, like let's get, and even if it's just, let's talk to Micah for 10 minutes on the phone so she can give you some reassurance and help you feel positive and empowered. Like, nope, let's get a U-Haul and walk her through these steps. And next thing you know, a few hours later, this lady's got her U-Haul packed and she's going back to the Midwest where she's from, leaving this relationship. And that is, there was no dollar amount given. Like we didn't have to, as a nonprofit, we didn't do it, weren't involved there, but that was the community that War Party Ranch has built, that Micah and these young ladies have built.
Somebody have your back. Really,
yeah, absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And at the end of the day, just to have the balls to be like, fuck this, like this is wrong. I want to help you. this is a young woman that, we've been working with, that's we consider like on our team, of young ladies that's always out with us. And she had the gumption to be like, fuck that, this is wrong. Like, I want to help you. And without War Party Ranch, without Micah's leadership in showcasing those things, and then, kind of having the men, like my brother-in-law, like myself and other men that are around, to also kind of have that muscle, right? To be like, no, fuck that. We'll go there if we need to. We'll call the sheriff. We'll do this, and all these little things of, oh, well, he said he knows all the cops and this and that. It's like, well, we know the sheriff. We'll go with the sheriff. What are you talking about?
Because, I mean, most women that are in an abusive relationship, and I guess this is more of a question, I'm speaking from my own experience growing up the way I did.
Mm-hmm.
The abusers are 99% of the time very manipulative,
right?
And very smart.
So what happens
and very like,
yeah. So what happens is abusers groom everyone around them the same way they groom their person they're abusing. So what that means is, I'm sure we can all think of this as an example. You might meet a couple or be friends with somebody, and the guy is amazing. You're like, man, Jeremiah is such a nice guy. Like, he's so cool. He's this and that. And then comes to find out, like, maybe my wife is making complaints, or the cops get called, or whatever. And there are like kind of hints of like, oh, there might be some domestic violence there. But I'm so good at manipulating the whole situation and grooming everyone that I'm such a nice guy. And then what you will see is when my wife does snap and she keys my truck or does something, and I'm at your house hanging out and she finds me and keys my truck up or whatever, I'm like, yeah, see this crazy bitch? I told you she was fucking crazy. And almost kind of gaslighting them to a point where they break and they lose it in front of a bunch of people. That's like the very commonality, right? Like, straw to break the camel's back. In a public setting or some kind of way, the abuser can twist this to show everyone, I told you, I told you, I told you. And that is very, very common. So when you add that to their relationships, how do you ask for help? How do you move forward? No one's going to believe you. And then when you add people that are in positions of power, whether they have a lot of money, they're holding money over your head, like, you don't even have a job,
NFL
take care of these
players
kids,
right now, dude.
all of it. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Or he's a police officer, or he's friends with police officers, they are able to manipulate situations. So I think like that is something that most people don't understand. And another statistic is, 1 in 3 women are abused in their lifetime. That's just the
really?
ones. Yes. That's just the ones that are 1 in 3. But that's just the ones that said, yes, it's happened to me. So the way we look at it is like, there's 3 men in this room, right? And it's like, are we going to say 1, 2, 3, not it? Right? Like, if you look at that statistic as 1 in 3, that means 1 in 3 men are abusers. That's kind of how that's kind of how I flip that statistic around. Now, it's probably not exactly 1 in 3, right? Or whatever it is. But if we look at it in that way, that allows you to open up your eyes a little bit to see, you're in a group of 5 or 6 friends and you're like, wow, one of my buddies, somebody in this group statistically, is violent, domestic violence, whether that's, all forms of domestic violence that could be done there. Now, because going back to what I said, abusers are going to groom everyone around them the way they're grooming the person they're abusing. You kind of take that in perspective, and that will help you open up your eyes a little bit to see a little bit of the red flags or something that could be there and what's going on in situations. Now back to like the veteran side of things, right? First responders, veterans, high stress jobs. I'm not making excuses for anything that's ever happened to a woman or the way men have conducted themselves. However, all those things come into a factor, and it's not to say that somebody can't go down a dark path and not recover from that. But at the end of the day, I also feel that, those aren't something that the women should have to deal with in the dark alone. They should be able to deal with that out in public. And speaking of NFL players, like, and I don't know their whole situation, but like Ray Rice, he punched her in the elevator, got caught on camera or whatever, right? Him and his wife they speak on that all the time, and they're like domestic violence advocates, and they got married after that. And they say, I don't know, but they say they have a healthy relationship. I'm going to believe them in that situation. I'm going to say, you know what? it looks to me like this man, you know, she was like, hey, I was spitting on him, I was hitting him too. Like it was both of us. We both needed therapy. Everything kind of has its nuances. It's
such a touchy subject because
so touchy.
Everything is different. Well, everybody has different backgrounds.
Everybody, and
like
you can't cookie cutter things.
Right.
And in America, our favorite thing we like to do is put it in a fucking box. Everything goes in a box, right? And the problem with that is everything is different. Nothing fits in a box. And what we really try to highlight, what I try to highlight with that is just doing what's right. Not to be scared of helping people, of standing up. So that story I just told you about the young lady who, and this is literally just a couple phone calls and one of the girls being able to go over there and help her move. Excuse me. That in itself was just that emotional support she needed, that a few people telling me, you're doing the right thing. Get the fuck out of there. Take care of yourself. You know, hey, I've been there before. This is what happened to me. It's only going to get worse or whatever. Get out of there. Those types of stories and that support she got at that moment is what she needed. Now, obviously, now she's going to be on a completely healing journey. She needs to go through this whole process, this journey of how does she heal herself? How does she not date another guy who's going to conduct himself in the same way? What kind of red flags are there? You know, what are we doing? So, all that being said, I just think there's ways where it's not cookie cutter. It's always nuance. There's so much nuance to each individual situation. The only thing the general public needs to do, and what I suggest people to do, is just learn more about it, do some reading on things, just kind of where you're interacting with people, what you see, and don't be scared to ask questions or stick out for what you think is right, you know?
Yeah, and I think having a cornerstone, right, for them to lean on. So if you can just be supportive without judgment or anything like that, right?
Absolutely.
Like that's probably one of the biggest things. That's fucking amazing, Jeremiah. I love War Party Movement, War Party Ranch. Like, I don't support a whole lot of nonprofits unless they're good, genuine people that I know. And I think what you're doing is fucking amazing. And I think that it should be bigger and should grow bigger. So I urge anybody that has the means to help, or if you want to help. Well, actually, let me start with this, because we have a pretty broad listener base. Mm-hmm. You know, I would say probably 95% of them are men. Yeah. But I guess going into, okay, let me ask this. If there's a young woman out there that's listening to this and she's in an abusive relationship, what's the best practices that they can do? And then is there a way to reach War Party Movement? Yeah.
So for us, I mean, we have on the website, you can email us on the website. DM, social media is easy too. For a young lady who's listening, whether you're whatever part of the country you're in, the biggest thing you can do is call it out, report it. You know, the hardest, what usually happens with these young ladies in these situations is no one wants to call the police and actually file a report. So like the lady we were just talking about, there's no report done. So this guy, you know, like, and I hate to like put it on them because it's not on them, right? But what's going to happen, and now this guy got away with this in this relationship. He has a record of priors of domestic abuse. And if it's not out there, if you don't, then like sunlight is going to cleanse everything, right? So you have to be able to call it out. Now, that might be hard to say, hey, I want to go to the sheriff or file a report or do whatever. But what I always say is like, you should be able to find people in your community or someone that you can trust and start talking about it, getting it out there. Because if it's only on you, you're just dealing with that burden. And it could be your mother, it could be your uncle, it could be your brother, it could be anybody that you just trust, your best friend, to talk about what's going on. Because that's the first step, is acknowledging what's going on with you, with, hey, I'm in this spot or this happened to me. What do I do forward? But if you internalize it and hold it all in, then it's never, you're not going to heal. You're not going to process from it, let alone be able to remove yourself from that situation. So the very first step is like, you have to tell someone, right? There's domestic abuse hotlines. There's all kinds of things and professionals that can kind of steer you down the right path. Unfortunately, a lot of those paths are going to be like the red tape paths. Like, hey, you need to call the police department. We need to get a report filed. It's a lot. And if you don't have a support system, if you're on your own, it's even harder. So I always encourage people.
I'm sure there's a lot of loopholes too and shit that happens that, you know.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's so many things and factors in there, but the reality is the best thing you can do is to try to report it. And when I say report it, that's even just talking to someone that you trust, one of your friends or something. So it's not all on you.
Especially because you're in an unsafe situation, man. At least letting somebody know where you're at. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times, it's a lot harder than people think because, you just look at the construct of America and how we're built. A lot of times it's, the wife, whether they have a job or they don't, a lot of families, they need the dual income or they both have to work.
Especially now,
so a lot of times there's all these finances tied into things. So if you are, whether you're married or not married, you're under the same household, that makes it even harder. So it's not just like a process of just like one day, today, Monday morning, I'm going to wake up and like leave here. Like it's an ongoing process and you definitely need some outside influence to be able to help you. So the number one thing I always tell people is to talk to people, talk to a friend, talk to somebody. Even if you don't have anybody in your life, call the domestic abuse hotline. They'll help you get started down the right path. There's plenty of churches and people and just resources in the community. They're not always super easy to find, but even for us, what we do a lot of times is, I'll get a call or someone a DM or something and she's in like, Minnesota. Like I know nothing about Minnesota, but all we'll do is like Google or I'll make some calls and be like, hey, who do I know lives in Minnesota or what do I know? And just kind of ask like, hey, what do you think? And try to help them go down the path, for that. But at the end of the day, us being a small nonprofit without a ton of resources too, like I also feel bad because it's like, dang man, I'm hearing these stories and I'm almost feel like my hands are tied to do anything other than give them advice. But what I've found myself and for Micah,
this is why it's important for people to donate. I think like I don't normally tout or commercial or ask for money for anybody, but this is fucking important, man. This is a much bigger issue than you think, especially if it's 1 in 3. That is fucking frightening, man. Like I went through it as a kid, like watching my mom get beat up by multiple men. So, I mean, I basically had my biological father and then 2 stepfathers after that. And 2 of those 3 were abusers. So that kind of fucking makes sense, dude. Yeah. Like that is fucking insane.
It's the cycle. It's the cycle of the same type of men. And then the other part of it is, like you look at your circumstance, your mother's circumstance, and it's like from the outside looking in, you're like, dang mom or whatever. But you look at it, it's like, how is she feeding you and your brothers? What is she doing? Like there's so many things that go in these factors of being a mom or being a woman in these kind of situations that again, like I found, and Mike and I were talking about this the other day, sometimes just being a voice to listen to somebody and give them advice and say, hey, you've got to go to the sheriff or you've got to do this or this is what we can help you with or there's some options. Sometimes just having an outside perspective of a rational brain to them is enough to get for them to say, you know what?
Well, I think just talking to somebody that's maybe not law enforcement, right? Because you don't know what path you're going to go down then, right? So just having somebody just to bounce something off of.
Yeah, correct. Like, yeah. So we try to, by no means we're not professionals, so that sucks. I don't have the resources I had to professional mental health is one lady, Mandy, the Indian gal I was telling you about on the reservation. However, with her, she's limited resource as well. We have to get the girls enrolled in that. That's not physically removing them from something. That's just the mental health aspect of it. So we look at that as more of the
God. There's so many variables the too, man. There's so much afterwards too that needs to be unpacked, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, and again, that's why we look at what we're doing with these ladies as empowering. Now, this isn't for everyone either. This is not like what we're doing it's hard as fuck, man. I mean, so I think it is glamorized, you know, on social media and on TV. And this isn't a knock to like, and again, I'm not the most badass cowboy in the world either, but this isn't a knock to like all the horsey girls on Instagram. But it's like, you look at the Western world on social media.
How many fucking rips are running around?
well, you look at social media and it's just like a bunch of horse girls like doing their chores
I see what you're
on
saying,
social media, right? And but then for us, it's like you look at like our girls and they're real cowboys, you know, like they're actually like, they're out roping, they're out branding, they're out, you know, moving cow, they're doing actual stockmanship and working. So there is a little bit of that nuance of, you know, the glamorization of the Western world, the glamorization of doing things. So for us, our demographic of women that we can actually work with is pretty small because, you know, we do have a lot of physical limitations, mental limitations. Like, hey, if you're not ready for it to be this hard, you know, and we're not professionals. So it's like, I can't baby you and coddle you. None of the girls that are on our team, you know, especially my sister, like, I mean, you're going to get cussed out, dude. Like you're, you know, like, and so I think like that in itself has also,
but it kind of goes back to building that team mentality and having people be
Absolutely.
authentic and tell you how they feel.
Absolutely.
Right.
So we've just seen like because of that attitude and this, mindset where these women can look at someone like my sister and look up to her and be like, man, I want to be like her. You know what I mean? And I think that is so powerful because she's sharing her story about some of the things she's been through. And I can only imagine if you are in this spot in your life where you feel so helpless and you don't feel like you can do anything. And you look at this lady who's like swings a rope like you've never seen anybody do in your life. You're like, oh my gosh, I want to be like her. Right. And for her to tell her story, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It's like, wow, you were where I was once. So I think that's what's so key in a lot of these women that we work with and that are part of our team, because when they really can be more intimate and break some things down and kind of tell their story, you would never expect that this badass freaking jacked coach, that's this rodeo coach, Natasha McCann, has a story like she does. So if you know, and I think that is important to showcase and to share because it gives these women light at the end of the tunnel. It's easy for me to sit here and be like, I was a Green Beret and I had this career and blah, blah, and everyone's like, yeah, of course, dude, you can do these things. But I think it's important to kind of give them that muscle, if you will, at the end of it, to be like, hey, we do have a crew of guys who are willing to do what's right. And then you do the same, right? You look at the women that are all part of it and you're like, holy cow, like these ladies were just like me. And I think that's important to share. And then just like I said, you know, the girls who are just roping at the community rodeo, right? Like they're representing some of these ladies who haven't even been able to have a conversation with their friend yet and let them know that, you know, the guy I'm dating, you know, beats the snot out of me or does X, Y, and Z, right? So yeah. I think that it's very grassroots and we want to keep it that way. But it's also one of those things where it's just like, the problem set's so big. It's easy for us to feel like our wheels are just spinning and we're not doing anything.
I really think it's an epidemic, man. And the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, because this is just one part of what you're doing with War Party Movement. There's a whole nother like trafficking side to stuff, right? Like, yeah. And it was fucking frightening to me, honestly, the last time that you were in. It's still stuck in my brain. And it's made me look at everybody different, you know, like my head is definitely much more on a swivel because of you and who's around my kids and around my family and around my community. And like, just be vigilant, you know, take your head, you know, pick your head up and just kind of look around, man.
It's one of those things where it's like, it'll never happen to me until it happens to you. Mm-hmm. You know, I think a lot of people feel that way, you know, that's not going to happen to me, you know, and or that could, you know, how does these things happen or what's going on? And,
well, I just envisioned like when you hear human trafficking, I think of one thing. I think of like
abducted.
Yeah. Abducted, like the Hollywood version, right? Like, a bunch of young women in the back of a U-Haul and the cartel's taking them someplace or what, you know, a Sicario type situation.
And that happens, but the more common things that happens is, you know, there's like drugs and alcohol involved, or the other common one now is just being like sextortion or utilizing the internet to be able to exploit people, whether that's teenagers, young women, young men, or if that is, you're a 16-year-old girl and you think you're talking to like a 17, 18-year-old boy, and you're really talking to like a 35-year-old pimp who is manipulating you over months, weeks of
How much of that do you think goes on in OnlyFans and like some of these other sites like that?
I've tried. I've actually, I have a couple of friends that have OnlyFans, and I've tried to, professionally and without making them feel like I'm degrading them in any way, really pick their brain and try to understand, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? And it's like, I know a lady who makes like 20 grand a month, and
I got it all wrong.
I know. And it's like, okay, well, I understand that part, but how do you feel, do you feel, can you be exploiting all these other things, and really try to look at it. So if you are an Instagram influencer, let's say, your typical probably girl with OnlyFans is like, oh, she has, 100,000 followers. She's got an OnlyFans, blah, blah. I'm assuming, and I'm not, I don't know this lady exactly, but I'm assuming she's doing stuff on camera with people.
I've never actually been on the site. Should we pull it up or something?
No,
or like, is it all porn or
porn,
like?
Dude. It's like porn.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, from my understanding.
Because I know like some of the professional athletes that I've had in that are men have some OnlyFans shit going on too.
Dude.
So I don't know.
The lady that
is it all porn, Matt?
Well,
what is it?
Kamozi's is like he has that fighting. I
didn't mean to call him out. Shout out, Chris.
But he like the people that get it like DM him like, hey, take those boxers off or something like that. But his is all like jiu-jitsu.
He's such a pretty boy too, dude.
So from my understanding, the lady I interviewed, hers is, she does porn. But it's like with her boyfriend or whoever.
But still, there's grooming going on there. I mean, what you just explained with Chris, he's basically getting groomed by.
Yes and right. So what my understanding behind it is that you're behind the camera, you can interact with the people, and if they say, hey, I'll pay you $50 to do this.
So it's like doing it on Instagram or something, basically, right? And having a subscriber.
You're protected behind a platform.
It's paid to talk to someone, basically.
Right.
Really?
Like lonely people pay to talk.
But are there people being exploited on OnlyFans through, like webcam stuff? So again, going back to the, 16-year-old girl, and you're talking to a guy you think is, your own age, and you're being groomed, and it takes months and months and months. Next thing you know, he's like, hey, meet me here, like, let's go. And she's like complaining about, and all he's doing is sowing that seed about how bad her parents are and won't let you do anything and blah, 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 and this and that and the other. And you're so mature for your age, and all these different steps of grooming this young lady. Next thing you know, she is being exploited. And it could be, actually on the streets, or it could be on OnlyFans, or it could be in those kind of webcam stuff.
Snapchat,
and the reason
whatever,
right? And the reason why they use those as a grooming process is because it's not as invasive. Because I'm literally just telling you, hey girl, you're just going to be in front of the camera. Like, look at all these guys like interacting with you, and it starts there, and it continues down this snowball path, right? And it's like, and like the old school way would be stripping. Like, how many strippers probably started out like, I'm just going to strip, I need the money or whatever. Next thing you know, it's 6 years later and they're coked out. They're doing stuff in the back room for extra money, blah, blah, blah. It is a path to being groomed, I would say. But I'm also not as familiar with it. I would like to try to conduct, like interviews essentially if I can, but at the same time, it's so sensitive where like the people I know that do it, they think there's nothing wrong with it, and I get it. Like, and I'm not saying there is. I don't know if they're exploited or not.
I'm not knocking that, man. Shit, if you can make 20 grand.
Yeah, but I have been.
And you're of age. That's the thing. Like, I don't want that shit happening to my kids until they're grown-ass adults and can make that decision. And I have been at conferences where the cyber side of things was really exploited, and this is what I'm talking from, the experiences at the conferences, the lessons learned, and a lot of the things that the guys were saying, like some of these detectives and people that work cyber. Like
the
child pornography.
Child pornography is big.
Dude, that is frightening too. Yeah.
So there's a lot of those things that go on, and a lot of these girls, they're underage, but they're 15. Some are even way younger. But you take a young lady who's 15 years old. You put a bunch of makeup on her and stuff, and it's one of those things where
It's hard to fucking
People
tell
don't know.
now. Yeah.
Right. People don't know that it, you could be just
Plus
a guy.
you have filters. Now you have AI. Like,
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother side of it. It's like AI where people are able to steal.
one of my friends, I was like, wow, you look amazing. You must have lost a bunch of weight or whatever. And I commented, she said, no, I have to tell you the truth. It was fucking AI regenerated or Photoshop. I don't know what it did.
Yeah. But
it just made her look better in her profile picture. I was like,
yeah. Well, I'm just one of those guys going back to all of it. Mm-hmm. Adults are going to adult. And if you want to be grown enough and say you can handle those things, okay. I'm here to make sure that kids don't get fucked with. Absolutely 0 kids.
Yeah.
Now, do I think it's a good idea? Probably not. I think if you are mentally in a bad position and you could go down those rabbit holes and be groomed by someone or whatever,
there's got to be some guilt that comes with it, no matter what level you are at some point. At some point.
Yeah, and I because I try to be a little more compassionate because I do interact and work with women in this space. So I'm not going to be like, oh, you're a piece of shit. I just think it's a bad road to go down because it does open up the doors for so many things. And I can only assume that your DMs are somebody from, whatever porn industry or something's going to hit you up or whatever. Like, it opens up the doors for certain things I don't necessarily you want to go down. And I think most people look at the porn industry as a whole, whether that's OnlyFans or the porn industry, is like this wholesome, like, oh, you're an actress, you're an actor, we get paid to do it. Well, that's who you see on TV doing interviews and the popular ones, but everything else in the shadows is not what you think. And there's so many people being arrested and busted and whether it's underage stuff, whether it's actual rape, whether it's actual like women being exploited to, I worked a case where there was a girl doing porn in one hotel room, and if she didn't do the scene, the pimp would burn her 3-year-old daughter with cigarettes.
Holy
and
shit.
like FaceTime her while he was doing it if she didn't perform all the acts that she was told to do it during that. So again,
that's human trafficking.
That's human trafficking,
finest,
right?
There,
so
man.
People don't understand that's what's going on. So if it's a lot broader. It's way bigger than what you see. The fringes aren't necessarily the fringes. Mm-hmm. Most people, they're looking through a toilet paper roll and they're seeing these, famous porn stars on social media.
What can law enforcement do in a situation like that? Is there anything that they can step in?
There's a lot, but at the same time, you got to look at, I talked to what happened to me in Vegas. I talked to one of the Vice cops, and he literally said, man, like, we have a hard enough time trying to keep 13-year-old girls off Paradise, let alone what's going on in the casino.
They're so spread thin in Vegas. I was just there for Formula One, and it was fucking insane.
Everywhere is spread super thin, right? And like, you look at law enforcement side of things, no one wants to be a cop. I have a good friend, and she helps me do war party stuff. And
shout out to any first responders listening to this, man. Yeah. My hat goes off to you, and I have a bunch of personal friends that are. And
I have a friend, she's a detective in LA County. She works all like SVU children, and that poor lady, man. I don't want to say too much because I want to out who she is, but mentally, I don't know how she does it on day in, day out. She struggles a lot. I don't think she's going to be there very much longer. She's been shopping around jobs as like work for like the Forest Service or something up in Wyoming or Montana, just to like get out of the city and get away from it, because the things that she sees and watches these victims go through what they go through, these kids go through what they go through, and then the perpetrators not being, whether that's the broken judicial system, whether it's red tape, them trying to throw the book at them. And like, I talked to her a couple weeks ago, and she literally was on this really big trial where she was like basically being, cross-examined for like 12 hours a day. Like, it was like she's the bad guy through this prosecution, and going through that day to day, building this case, seeing what you saw, removing the children from what you see, building this case. And then the guy gets 6 years, for raping, 6-year-old girl for, since she was 6 months old or something.
Crazy, dude.
And dude, it's nuts. So I think
Thanks for putting me in a good mood to go to my next podcast.
So I think like you look at that and it's one, the job's hard, and then two, it's like, who wants to be a cop nowadays with everything that's gone on in law enforcement? Like the state of Colorado took where the cops can be sued, like it just, no one supports law enforcement, but then yet now we're back on this like shift again where we want to support law enforcement as citizens, but yet our local governments don't support law enforcement. They still want, this, you just look at society, look at these big cities, man. Like all the big cities are just turned upside down. And it's because of the lack of law enforcement,
and what they can do, man.
Enforcing the law.
Yeah. Enforcing the law, yeah.
Yeah, lack 100%. Of being able to enforce the law. And there's no consequences anymore,
Yeah.
So it's easy. Like if you're willing to be a criminal and be in the criminal system, you're fine with it. It's just law-abiding.
It's a career at that point.
It is. Yeah. Law-abiding citizens are the ones that we're worried about. I don't want to be in trouble. I don't want that on my record. I don't want that. But like, if you have a record and you don't care, you don't give a shit about stealing stuff from Walmart or doing whatever, just being a shithead and like continue. And
or
it just
going to jail and then just getting out, in a short time.
Well, there's no cash bail now. Like all kind of shit too. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's like you don't even have to pay bail or anything like that. Yeah.
Really?
And Denver is like one of the worst cities, dude. It's getting worse and worse.
So bad. Yeah, man, that's frightening on that front. That reminds me, kind of going back to a lot of the women that you're helping with War Party and a lot of the trafficking stuff that you're doing. A lot of them come from Native American culture.
Yeah.
And it's a whole nother animal. And kind of the reason why you started this, right, was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you're dealing with federal lands and law enforcement outside of that. A lot of times if someone's abducted or in an abusive relationship, like outside law enforcement can't go onto those federal reservation lands and do anything about it or talk to each other. I know the Trump administration, what's the name of that?
So Ivanka Trump worked on Savannah's Law. Savannah was, she was killed. I want to say they were in South Dakota, and her neighbors, she was pregnant. Her neighbors killed her, cut her baby out, and took her baby.
Oh my God.
So, and then what happened was because it was like all these rules about like tribal land, federal land, all these jurisdictional issues, that Savannah's Law labels all the law enforcement to be able to talk and to share data as well as be able to move forward with these cases. And then it was the Biden administration, but it was Ivanka's work. They passed, I want to say in like 2002, they passed where now you can be prosecuted for crimes you commit on tribal land. So before, if you're a non-native, you could go to like the Wind River Reservation or you can go to the Navajo Reservation, commit a crime, and you can't be prosecuted because you're not a non-enrolled tribal member. So now anybody...
That's so fucked.
Man. Right. So now you're able to be prosecuted under federal crimes that you commit on the reservations. The reservation in particular, reservations are hard because most of them out in the West are very rural. When you talk about law enforcement activity, I mean, you might have like, let's say you've got 8 deputies for the whole reservation. Well, they're all hot seating 4 different cars. There's no money. They don't have computers in there. Their radios suck. There's no Amber Alert and Silver Alert system. I mean, they are working with like bare bones to make things happen. And you look at it as like, well, if you go on one call, it takes 45 minutes to drive from this call to the other call. So if you're responding to domestic disturbance, it might take you an hour to actually get to that place to be able to do that. And then it's just, there's not as much money in there. So anytime you remove money from law enforcement, it's going to be so much harder. And then the other thing in the Native community, we also have like what I would be considered like an urban Native. Well, there's a ton of people in the Native community that live just in, regular cities and Native community. And a lot of times that reporting gets lost because they don't know, like, are they Hispanic? It's like, oh, it's a Hispanic or a white woman or whatever. And it's like, no, she's Native. So then there's also a lot of ties with that. And then just as people, a lot of times you almost feel ostracized if you're in a different community. You're not quite Say you live in a Hispanic community where you look like them, but you're not you don't speak Spanish, you're not Hispanic, like you don't necessarily inculcate in the same community, even though you might look a lot like them. So I think there's just a lot of nuance problems in there. And then ultimately you add, drugs and alcohol. Where there's poverty, there's human trafficking, and that's regardless of the race of the women. So if you're talking,
or
Rust
inner
Belt,
city or rural,
everywhere.
too,
So
right?
you're talking Rust Belt, middle of nowhere, Ohio, or inner city, East St. Louis, you name it. This is what's going on. It's just, for criminals, it's easier to act when there's less law enforcement, less things around. So if you're looking like how big Navajo is, I mean, you drive 2 minutes
crazy.
outside of
Couple
Shiprock.
states, yeah.
And you do something to a woman outside of Shiprock, you drive 2 minutes out of the little town and you're in the middle of nowhere, right? Like 2 minutes away. So you add that, to the response times and no problems and, and on top of, drugs and alcohol that exists in all these places, everything's very meth heavy and alcohol heavy, whether that's the rural, and the inner city, and not so much meth, it's, other drugs, but, fentanyl stuff,
Yeah.
but the same,
How much cartel activity? Because I know there's a lot of issues, and with it being federal land and they're not dumb.
So I've even had to slow my work down a lot, search and rescue efforts and things that I'm willing to do with families and help because of cartel activity.
Really?
Yeah. Stuff I won't talk about, but
yeah,
stuff that I had to hey, my family, I kind of got in a little talking to by the FBI up on the Crow Res last year. So,
damn, dude.
Yeah.
That sucks, man, because it just sucks for everybody. So I guess coming back, we're kind of coming up on time here, Jeremiah. We got to wrap this up here pretty soon because I have some prior obligations. But dude, this has been awesome, man. Our time just flew by, and I would have you back as many times as you want to come back. And I need to have you back more often.
I want you to talk to my sister.
Let's go.
She's just a humble, quiet cowgirl, but her story is incredible. She's an incredible lady. I believe it's February 25th, we have Boot Barn came out and they shot a small documentary. It's called Community Matters, and that's going to come out on February 25th. So it'll be on YouTube and Instagram and stuff like that, and we'll be posting it on our stuff.
Do you guys have a YouTube channel, or
no? We
will
don't.
It be okay?
We're actually we are a bunch of dumb cowboys, and my sister and I have no clue what we're doing. We are building a team. We're really using 2024. And recently we brought on a young lady who's really helped us out a ton. So we're really looking at 2024 as growing, improving our websites, improving just the small things that, we don't know how to do. We know how to do the operational side very well when we're putting on clinics for these women or running a rodeo or doing things like that. That is definitely expertise from, myself and from my sister. But when it comes to all the backside, even raising money.
That's another way for people to donate. If you don't have money, man, you can donate time too,
absolutely.
Right? So if you have some sort of skill set,
we always have things coming up, especially for people who want to be involved in the rodeo world. My sister runs a ton of rodeos. She's really, really good at it. We did one really cool one in September. We did the Big Time Bucking Horse for Charity in Kiowa, Colorado, and my sister and all the girls ran everything from setup to tear down to, sorting off all the bucking horses, getting them loaded into chutes. I mean, everything except for when the rider and his guys are saddling and getting ready to get on those broncs. From, suicide gates to stripping chutes. I mean, these girls they're handy, man. They're good. So, we always take women who, hey, I want to get involved and, I want to do something, or even guys too. Hey, how can I help? How can I get involved? What are we doing? And we've got a lot of small touch points that, again, volunteer time doesn't have to be money.
Absolutely. When you come back, we need to dive straight into War Party, because I feel like we could go fucking 4 hours, man, with everything that I want to ask you about, and War Party Ranch specifically. So keep that in the back of your mind the next time you come in. Let's stop bullshitting about SHOT Show and cool guy shit.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll dive into some more of that, or just come back more often.
Yeah.
So real quick, the best places to donate Where is that?
Yeah, so on here, when you just click War Party Ranch, it's going to send you to donation links.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is we're a work in progress on this guy.
And then War Party.
And we go
War
to
Party
apparel.
Movement, right? Is apparel, right?
Yeah, so
if you
all
want
the
a
sales-
badass T-shirt or something, and also the proceeds are
Yeah,
going
so if you go to the shop there, that right there is what we have. We don't have any T-shirts yet. We're actually dropping the "Don't Be a Puto" T-shirt next week.
This one's cool.
Yeah, that Kill All Pedos one did really well. So what was cool is we did we
You need one that says your mom's favorite cowboy if you
know.
haven't already done it.
So what we've done is we moved to a pre-sales instead of just we were using drop shipping. Our margins were crap. So now we moved to pre-sale so we can have a lot more. It takes longer for the customer to get their product. But the thing is they're all one-off. Designs. And then all the money goes directly to the nonprofit. So with those Kill All
You don't have any
shirts,
overhead.
No,
I guess.
no,
That's super important, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, it's awesome stuff, man. It's awesome. More importantly, it's one of the best organizations that I know because I know the people that are running it. So,
appreciate it, brother.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate what you're doing and what you're doing for communities. And the next time you're in, I want to talk to you about if you had all the money in the world, what you would do.
Hell yeah.
And then we'll go from there. But
Let's do it.
But yeah, Jeremiah, thank you so
sir.
much, brother, man.
Heck yeah.
I really appreciate it. Maddie, you good over there? Everybody, thanks for listening. Follow War Party Movement, Jeremiah Blackbeard _Blackbeard on Instagram. War Party Movement, War Party Ranch, both have Instagram pages. Go and follow that. Watch for the YouTube. Watch for the Boot Barn documentary coming out, right?
Yep, February
Okay.
25th.
Awesome. Awesome stuff, brother. Thank you,
sir.
Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. If you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.